Hello and welcome to my 2023 reading wrap up. This is my first time doing like a reading wrap up from the whole year, or a reading wrap up in general. Last year I did actually film one, but we know last year was a bit weird with my editing and posting and everything. Like I didn't really post much, like at all. I had videos to post. Anyway, last year was weird in that aspect, but also for my reading. I swear I was in a book slump like almost the whole year. Unless I would find like a really good book, I would read it and I'd love it, and then I'd pick up the next book and then I just couldn't do it again. Like the whole year, in any of my free time, I could have been editing or reading, and I just wasn't really in the mood. But 2024 is going to be a different year. Hopefully, I'm praying. As you can see, my bookshelf is quite demolished. It doesn't look as good as it usually does, and that is because all 55 books I read this year are sitting right in front of me off my shelves and ready for me to show you and talk about them. So let's obviously just start with January. Also, I just want to quickly say before I show you the first book, some of these ratings actually might not be correct, or I might have like wanted to change them, because I wrote my books like pretty much as soon as I read them. So I'm like on the high of after reading that book, but after reading like more books I probably would have changed the rating, but I'm just gonna leave them as to what's on my phone as of right now. But you know, they might not be exactly accurate, which I know is annoying, but anyway. First book I read in 2023 was Twisted Lies. This book I really enjoyed, probably one of my favorites from the series. Obviously this was the last book in the Twisted series. I love the epilogue in this book because it shows like all the characters interacting together like when they're older, and it's just so cute. So that like end epilogue bumped up the rating a lot. I rated this book 4.25 stars. Next we have Magnolia Parks. This is where the obsession starts of this series, obviously. I am obsessed with the covers of all of these books, and I'm obsessed with all the characters, and I just love this book so much. As you can see, it is tabbed. I rated this 5 stars, obviously. All of the Magnolia Parks Universe books I have rated 5 stars. Yeah, this isn't my favourite from the whole series, obviously, because it's just the first one, but I still love it so much. Okay, then we read another one of my all-time favourite books of the year, and that is Better Than the Movies. This book started my Lynn Painter obsession. Actually, my first book I'm reading in 2024 is a Lynn Painter book, but Better Than the Movies is probably my favourite read from the whole year. I have 2 books that are like tied, and this is one of them. I don't know if I could recommend this book enough. It is 5 stars, 6 stars, whatever you want to say. My favourite book. I love it. It's literally like a little rom-com in a book, and it is the sweetest thing ever, and you need to read it immediately. I read it so fast, I was hooked. Then I read Archer's Voice, which I also rated 5 stars. Unfortunately, I like really rushed the ending, which I feel like bumped down the score. Like, it's still 5 stars, but I just don't feel as attached to it as I could, like, whereas my other 5-star books. But I still love this book. It is so heartbreaking and beautiful, and I kind of want to reread it. I don't know, hard to explain, but I definitely recommend. Now, I started the Throne of Glass series, so I have the Assassin's Blade. I unfortunately didn't finish this series last year, but I'm definitely going to this year. I kind of just fell into a rut with this series. Obviously the books I have left now are just so long, so I kind of wasn't motivated to. But anyway, there's 5 novellas in this little book, and I counted them all separately. Don't know why. I guess I just wanted to get my rating goal up. So the first one is The Assassin and the Pirate Lord. I rated that one 3.25. The Assassin and the Healer, that one was just 3 stars. Then The Assassin in the Desert, another 3.25. Same with The Assassin in the Underworld, and then The Assassin and the Empire, I rated 3 stars. I really enjoyed this book. It was a great book to get to know the main character. I definitely recommend reading it first. Like, I don't understand people that say read it third, because you get so much backstory, and then you go into Throne of Glass and Crown of Midnight, and it spoils like everything that happens in this book, so you're not like shocked when you get to the 3rd book and then read this. Like, it just doesn't make sense in my mind. So I'd recommend reading it first. Okay, now moving on to February. The first book I read was Better Than the Prom. This is one of the little novellas from Wes and Liz. I rated this novella 3 stars, which is what I usually rate novellas. because obviously they're only like less than 100 pages, so you can't get that connected to them. But of course, because it was from like my favorite characters ever, I still loved it. Then we have The Summer of Broken Rules. I love this book so much. I originally rated this book like 4.5 or 4.75, but I still think about this book. Like, I still think about it. I read this book in February. There's not a lot of books that I still think about till the end of the year. Like, all my top favorites, obviously, but there's not a lot of books I think about that. And so this was not just a 4.5. I immediately changed it to 5 stars because it is just so good. It's just so sweet. It's such a good summer book. I love the characters and I love it so much. Please read it. It's the best summer book ever. The vibes are amazing. The Pinterest board I have for this is incredible. It is so good. And then I read the novella for A Million Kisses in Your Lifetime, which is Birthday Kisses. I read that one 2.75. I really enjoy it, but I'm not like very attached to A Million Kisses in Your Lifetime. Like, it's not like my favorite book ever, so obviously it didn't like hit as hard as it could have. But yes, I did very much enjoy it. Okay, then I read Final Offer. This is a very chunky book, but I really enjoyed this one. I rated it originally 5 stars, but then changed it to 4.5 because I found myself not really thinking about it as much, or you know, like, I enjoyed it very much in the moment, but I do think it could have been shorter for sure, but I still love it. I love the kid in this book. He's adorable. I love so many things about this book. Like, I have my review I wrote for it sitting here, and I just have these little like little dot points I wrote underneath, and it's just so cute. I love the little details of this book, if that makes sense. Okay, then we read another Lynn Painter book. I read The Do-Over. I read this from the 13th to the 14th of February, so I read it over Valentine's Day because this is like obviously a Valentine's Day book. It's a Groundhog's Day, I think that's what it's called. I think that's a movie, I'm pretty sure. I don't know, but it's like where it repeats days. But yeah, this book was really cute. I liked it than the movies a lot more, for sure. But obviously this book just felt repetitive, which makes sense because it has to feel repetitive. I rated this book 3.75, and yeah, it was just like a short, really cute read. Honestly, this book was making me anxious though, because of some of the things the main character was doing. I was genuinely scared and anxious, and I mean, it's her problem, not mine, but yeah, I was a bit worried for her. Okay, then I read Unravel Me. I read Shatter Me and then the next novella in 2022. And then I picked up Unravel Me. I still haven't finished the series. I literally own up to Ignite Me. So I'm hoping to get to that this year. I have so many series I need to finish this year. It's not even funny. But I rated this book 4 stars. I did really enjoy this one. I liked it better than the first one, I'd say. Yeah, probably. I think I rated them both 4 stars, but I think I like this one more. I don't remember much about the first book, if I'm being honest, or this one. Then I read If He Had Been With Me. I love this book so much. I think I only rated it 4.5, but I honestly forgot I read this. And then when I was like pulling out my stack, I'm like, oh my god, I forgot about this book. And I was like, I think this has to be in one of my tops though. It's like such a sad book. I loved it though. It was so good. I don't know, it was just, I could tell it was very YA. Like, there were some things in this book that like kind of weirded me out. And the last book I read in February was Throne of Glass. I was trying to read one of the Throne of Glass books each month. I rated this one 4 stars. There was some parts in this book that I just love, and that's what kind of made up for like the slower parts. But I feel like where I'm up to now in the series, it's just going to start getting better and better. But I wish I felt more connected to these characters, like how most people do feel to these characters. Okay, then we have my first reread of the year, or actually my only reread of the year. Only reread I've ever done, except for when I was younger and I would reread books constantly, but that was Things We Never Got Over, because this was my favourite book of 2022. I feel like I didn't enjoy it as much this time, but I think that was only because I felt like I was in a bit of a slump. If I read it at a different time, I think I would have enjoyed it more. I already read this because the second book was coming out, and I wanted an excuse to read this book. And then I read Wes and Liz's College Road Trip. I rated that one 3 stars. I really enjoyed this one. It was so cute, but again, it was just short, like 57 pages, but I really loved it. Then I read Things We Have From the Light. I was quite let down by this book. I was so looking forward to it. I still really enjoyed a lot of parts about this book. It just wasn't my absolute favourite. I rated it 4 stars still because there was a lot of moments I did really enjoy. I feel like the endings of books always make me rate them higher because they can be good endings but like not necessarily that good during the book, if that makes sense. Okay, then I read Fracture Me, which is the novella after Unravel Me. I rated it 2.25 stars. I think this was, if I remember correctly, in Adam's POV, and I do not like Adam, like at all. So, and I read A Good Girl's Guide to Murder because I've obviously heard amazing things about this book. And I rated it a 3.75. It wasn't my favourite. I don't know, I think I maybe just read it at a bad time because I still like enjoyed it, but it wasn't like my favourite. Like I do really like the characters in this book though, Pip and Ravi specifically. Okay, then I read Flawless by Elsie Silver. I originally read this on my Kindle, but I had to get the physical copy because I love this book and this series so much. I rated it 5 stars. I've rated every book in the Chestnut Springs series 5 stars. Honestly, some of them probably aren't 5 stars. It's just because of the series in general and how much I love the series and the characters. So they're probably not 5-star reads, but I don't know. I found the book writing very interesting from this book, and I don't know, I just like the tropes in this book, and yeah, I really enjoyed it. I recommend this whole series, so definitely read it. Okay, moving on to the March. Okay, then I read Crown of Midnight. This one I didn't enjoy as much as the first two, I don't think. I still rated it 4 stars. With Throne of Glass, I really enjoyed the plot, and this one, I didn't even remember the plot, but I obviously didn't enjoy it as much. One of my favourite characters from Throne of Glass kind of disappeared in this book, and the other character kind of was in it more, and I didn't really like that about it. So I guess that annoyed me, but I don't know. Then I read Indigo Ridge. This was just such a quick read. I liked the small town aspect of this book, and the mystery was very interesting. I rated it 4.25 stars. I don't really remember much about it, so I probably would change the rating. But then I read Kingdom of the Wicked, and I honestly really enjoyed this one. I don't know what it was about it, but I like loved it. There's like a cooking aspect to this book that I loved, in the restaurant and the family dynamic. Like I reckon the first part of this book was my favorite. Like ignore the like action and all that stuff. Like it just, the start of this book was so cozy and I loved it. Like I loved it so much. I rated it 4.5. I was obsessed with it. Like it was so good. Then I read Daisy Hates, and of course it was a 5 stars. Honestly, probably an unpopular opinion, but I find myself enjoying the Daisy Hates books more than the Magnolia Parks books. I know, I just love like her like home aspect with all the people, and I know, I just love Daisy. So that's probably it. I love Julian and I love Christian. And then the last book I read in March was Once Upon a Broken Heart. I rated this 4.5. I really love this book. I think honestly the first one was probably my favorite, maybe the second. No, I always find in fantasy books, I love just like seeing them at home and then being brought into the like fantasy world, but this was just so cute and so like fairy tale and magical, and I love Evangeline so much. Okay, moving on to May. The first book I read was Air of Fire. Again, rated this one 4, but honestly I'd probably change it to like 4.25 because I think this is my favourite in the series so far. This or the first one, Throne of Glass. I love the character that was introduced in this book. Then I read Happy Place. Of course this was an immediate 5 stars. I love Emily Henry and I love this book. I love Harriet. Just so good. I can't even explain how good it is. Please read it. Any Emily Henry book? Beach Read, Happy Place, Book Lovers, People We Meet on Vacation. Okay, then I read The Love Wager. I don't know what it was about this book, but I loved it. I think I rated it 4.5, and there was just something about it that I loved so much. Of course I love Lynn Paint, but I wasn't expecting much because I know a lot of people don't really like her adult romances as much. There was something about this book that was so good. I was like hooked. Then I read Heartless, which of course, like I mentioned before, 5 stars. I loved this one. I loved the kid in this book. and I just loved Willa and Kate. I just love seeing the Eden family. Then the last book I read in May was The Ballad of Never After. I rated this one 4.5, same as Once Upon a Broken Heart. I loved Evangeline again, of course, and Jax, of course. The plot twist in this book is absolutely insane. The first book I read in June was Always and Forever, Lara Jean. I rated it 3.5. The first and third movie has always been my favourite, and that's the same with the books. I never really liked the second one, but I love Peter Kavinsky and Lara Jean, and yeah, I really enjoyed this book. Then I read Today, Tonight, Tomorrow. This was a 3.75 stars. I really enjoyed the academic aspect to this book. I loved the game in this book, it was so cool. Then I read Magnolia Parks, The Long Way Home. I love this book so much. 5 stars, of course. Also heartbreaking. Heartbreaking. Oh my god. I can't wait for the new Magnolia Parks book to come out. It comes out the 13th of February. That's not even that far away. Then I read Throttled. I rated this book at 4.25 stars. I absolutely love the Formula One aspect of these books. It's just so good. I really liked Maya and Noah a lot. I really like them as a couple. I loved seeing all of the characters in this book and how their friendships like start to form in this book. Moving on to July. This is probably one of my longest books I read this year, and it literally took me 3 days, which is crazy for me. Like, it's like 600 pages and I read it in 3 days. And that is By a Thread by Lucy Score. If I'm being honest, this may have taken Things We Never Got Over off the list of my favourite Lucy Score book. This was so good. Incredible. 5 stars. One of my favourite books. It was just enemies to lovers, workplace romance, Grumpy Sunshine, their banter, and the way the things Dominic does for Ali is just so good. I love this book so much. I want to reread it so bad. Then I read Mile High. This book I rated a 4.25. I did really enjoy this book. There was definitely some things that annoyed me about this book. Just kind of the way Xander's talked to Stevie at the beginning. I also thought Stevie was quite relatable. I liked how he was like a hockey player and she was like flight attendant. I know, I love that aspect. I've never read a book like that, so it was great. Okay, then I read Fourth Wing. Oh my gosh, is this book incredible. It is so good. Like, are you kidding me? This was the book I was talking about when I was talking about Better Than the Movies being tied with another book for my top favourite. I loved all the characters. I loved the war college. I loved the trials. I loved the games. I loved the characters. Everything about this book was incredible. Such a good fantasy. And then I read In a Jam. I rated this 3.75. It was really good. I liked the small town farm aspect, and I really liked the kid in this book. There is a part in this book that like it was making me cry because it was so sweet. And then I read Say You Swear. This book is an immediate 5 stars. I have never cried more over a book ever. I was bawling my eyes out in the car. I read this when we were in WA. Oh my god, I was so sad. I was bawling my eyes out for so long. It's actually, I'm remembering, and it is making me tear up. But if you ask my mom, my dad, or my sister, I was bawling my eyes out. This is one of my favourite books for sure of the whole year. I really want to reread it because it was incredible. It's a football romance. It's like a beach house. It's got like such a good found family friend group, and everything is just so good. Please read it. Okay, moving on to July. The first book I read was The Serpent and the Wings of the Night. I honestly always forget I've read that book because I don't own it on my shelf, but I think it has just come out in Australia, so I'm gonna buy it because I did really enjoy this book. I rated it a 4.25. I really liked the vampire aspect of this book. I think that's the only vampire book I've read. I really loved this book. It was like enemies to allies to lovers. But then the ending of that book, I really need to read the second one and the little novella in between think if I buy the book, it's gonna make me remember that I need to read the second one because it was so good. Then I read Collided. I didn't like this one as much as Throttled. I still obviously like the Formula 1 aspect, and I really liked the art aspect of this book. I rated it at 3.5 because I just didn't feel connected to the characters, and I didn't really see them that well as a couple in their own book. Like in Throttled, I was so excited for them to get together, but in this one, I don't know, just didn't hit as hard. I also really liked the bucket list aspect of this book. Okay, then I read Powerless. Again, 5 stars. I love Jasper and Son so much. He is so cute. I loved how it was small town cowboy, but then it was also hockey player and dancer. Like, it was so good, and I obviously loved seeing the whole family and everything in this book. Okay, then I read The Naturals. This book was so good. I rated 4.75. Honestly, I was so hooked. I read this book so fast, a lot faster than I was expecting. It was so good, and I don't even know how to explain it. It's obviously a mystery. There's a little bit of found family, especially when I continue reading the series, the found family gets better. Okay, then I read Divine Rivals. This is a 5-star read. It is so good. It is so sweet. Like, it's so sweet, and I just love the characters. I love the letter aspect. It was such a different fantasy read. I know there is fantasy aspects, but it didn't feel like that. Like, there's something different about this book. It felt more like a cozy fantasy, and I loved it. So that was the end of August, and now I'm moving on to September. This is where the downfall starts happening. Before, I was reading, at the beginning of the year, I was reading like 8 books a month, and I went down to like 5 or 6, I think. Now is where it goes down to 2 or 1. This is where the downfall happened, and this is where I was in a slump constantly. But the first book I read in September was The Bodyguard. This book honestly let me down. I was so looking forward to it because I know heaps of people love this book and Catherine Center's writing, which I did like Catherine Center's writing, but there was just something about the book. I think it was mainly because I was in a slump, but I rated it 3.75. Okay, and then the last book I read in September was Kill Instinct. Again, same problem. I was in a bit of a slump, but I definitely enjoyed this more. I rated it 4 stars. Again, the found family was starting to get better. The romance was building up a bit more, and yeah, I really enjoyed it. Okay, then in October I read Powerless. This is 1000% one of my favourite books of the whole year. This is such a good enemies to lovers. Oh my god. It is apparently like Hunger Games. Now, to be fair, I haven't watched Hunger Games or read Hunger Games. I'm doing it this year. Don't get mad at me. I literally have bought the books. I'm about to start reading it. Just the quotes in this book. I've annotated this book so much. Okay, then I read Daisy Hates The Great Undoing. Now this, I think, is my favourite book of the Magnolia Park series. This book is incredible. Julian Haynes. I love him. And I love Daisy and Christian. The book itself is beautiful, and the words written inside it are beautiful also, but also painful. Very painful. Then the last book I read in October was I'm Glad My Mom Died. I really enjoyed this book. I really loved learning about Jeanette's story, and there is no rating for this book because I don't want to rate her life. Like, I don't want to rate a memoir, but I really enjoyed it. It was great learning about her life and like child actors and what it's like. I loved iCarly so much growing up. It was very cool getting to read about her life. Okay, then in November I only read 1 book, and that was A Curse for True Love. This book took me forever to get through. On here I put it as 4 stars. It probably is less, but I think I kept it as 4 stars because of how much I love the characters and the story. But yes, it was a bit of a letdown if I'm being honest, but I still loved like the quotes and the story of this book. But yeah, it just wasn't my favourite of the series. Okay, and then in December I was meant to read 3 Christmas romances, but honestly this isn't even a part of my book slump. It was more that I was just so busy in December. Like, I actually didn't really have time to read but I read 'Tis the Season for Revenge and I loved it. I was hooked. I honestly think it was because I was reading on my Kindle and I liked being able to lay in bed at night with my lights off and just lay in bed and read. But I also did love the book. I rated it 3.5. I would have rated it 4, but I was like, okay, that's probably going a bit far. But I really liked the characters in this book a lot. Like, I felt like they were a good match. Now in December there's only one more book that I've read, but I literally started so many books and didn't finish them for many different reasons. The last book I read in 2023 was Heartstopper Volume 5. I literally read this book in like an hour and I rated this 4 stars because I just love the Heartstopper series so much. It's just so cute and sweet. Okay, now that's all the books I read this year, but I really hope you guys enjoyed this video, and please let me know if you like watching my book videos because I really don't post many, but that's obviously something I'm interested in and I want to know if you guys are interested in it too, because I could easily post a lot of book videos. Anyway, let me know your favorite books of 2023. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed this book video. Bye!